Well, that would be nice if I joined you guys. Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of Monday Night Therapy. I'm your host, Minnie Hunt, and with me is Peter Bartell, Pigskin PD. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good to be here. GBR, Go Big Red,
Yay!
Husker Nation. It's great to be amongst you all. I see that N helmet mini logo in the corner, and Tommy Frazier comes to mind right away. Like
Oh,
it's just synonymous, you know?
good call. I like that. Um, you know, I recently did a show with you for
Yeah.
your podcast, and I just thought we had such a great time. I wanted you to come on and meet the folks here on Monday night. We have such a great chat. Let's see here. Well, Greg is my co-host on Mondays, and he was the first to say first. I don't know if he's actually here though. So, and then we have Fred Sacco, the first Holger Maniac, and that is actually a term of endearment for our chat on Thursday nights. And we have Roger Moore. He's always the first third. And somebody I haven't seen for a while, Joe Lalakis. Fourth. Let's see here. Justin Raji. Welcome, Justin. Oh, and Dana Williams from Facebook, and he wants to know what Greg's drinking tonight. So Greg's not here. So we'll have to ask him if he shows up. But no, I wanted you to come on and just talk about some Nebraska stuff with me. Mainly what I really want to talk about though is this House settlement. Did you hear the news on Friday?
I did. So what is it, like 20 million per school that is going to have to come directly from the university, right?
Right. Yeah, it's $20.5 million of the school's revenue, and any school that's opting into it can pay up to that amount. And what that does is it caps a salary. So it says you can only pay your athletes this up to this much money. And it's going to be increasing with every year, supposedly. And the reason this is so important is because of the fact that we've had this huge mess with NIL.
Yep.
Oh, look at that. Okay, this is actually really great. There's another person I asked to be on the show tonight. His name is Adam Lamparello. I hope I say his last name right. He's actually, I think, a professor of law.
He's a Rutgers, right?
Yes, the Rutgers guy. So I'm going to invite him, if that's okay. Invite. So. And I'm putting it in the chat, Adam. Okay. So it is an addition to the existing scholarships and benefits that the athlete already has.
Right. So they can still do NIL deals on top of this with some guardrails, right?
Okay. Yes. Two separate things.
Right.
Which is glorious because all NIL was being funneled through the school before, right?
Right.
And
yeah, it
now,
was just laissez-faire, totally.
Yeah. And now the only thing a school can pay is up to the $20.5 million. And now there's like this entity that was created. There's two entities. There's the what do they call it? The CSC, the College Sports Commission. And they're the enforcement. So if anyone's breaking the rules, they're going after you. And then they also have the clearinghouse, which is NIL Go. And they have certain parameters. So anything over $600 has to go through them.
Mm-hmm.
Actually kind of neat.
So, and those things did not exist before, right? It was just like if the athlete and the company wanted to cut a deal, they cut a deal, right? On the company's contract stipulations.
Yeah, and there weren't any stipulations as to how they would make the money.
Right.
Or how they would. Yeah.
I think like Madden Iamaleava, right? Like Arkansas, he transfers to UCLA is a good example of that. Like there's a lot of gray on whether or not he owes this money back. Arkansas is trying to get it back. So yeah. That's good. Like you said, it provides clarity. I understand it's not perfect, but the positive is what I'm seeing with you. How I see it is it's a step in the right direction.
It is, for sure. I mean, it definitely paves the way for a lot more, let's see. You know what? I think I better just put it in my X too. Give me 1 second. I'm going to make sure Adam has that link.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Yep, there we go. Okay. So yes, there is now also, it provides back pay to former athletes with a $2.8 billion payment over 10 years. And it's back pay for lost NIL compensation from 2016 to 2024. That's huge, because I think of all the players that have come through Nebraska that could have, should have been paid something and weren't.
Right.
And then we also have, the NIL must be legitimate. That is huge. A third-party clearinghouse known as NIL Go and operated by Deloitte will review and approve all third-party NIL deals worth $600 or more, and that aims to bring more transparency and consistency to NIL markets. So there's some sort of algorithm that they're going to use to assess whether or not NIL deals fall within a reasonable range. So in other words, like, let's say there's Oregon, for instance, who has this strong relationship with Nike, and say Nike gives Oregon's players all contracts, all NIL deals. You can't actually pay a player to stay at Oregon. You can only pay them for an actual NIL deal. So the cap is at $20.5 million. And if they transfer out, say they go, I don't know, to Nebraska or something, then you can't necessarily revoke that contract, which is kind of interesting. And if you do, you have to show just cause. And then that's an interesting comment, Pitt. He says the boundaries of the definition of legitimate are about to get stretched to hell and gone. It's going to be interesting. I think this paves the way for more laws to be made. I guess we lost Peter. But you do raise an interesting point, Pitt, because I wonder how these Texas billionaires are going to, there's always loopholes. How are they going to find ways then to pay their players? I'm just very interested in this. I want to know, because for years and years, at least for the last 25 years, right? Deep pockets doesn't necessarily equal success, but it sure does make it a lot easier to have success. And, I want to say, at least since Tom Osborne has left, that's kind of how things have been going. The OSUs, the Michigans, they've all profited because they have deep pockets. There we go. I think he's back. There's Adam. Okay. And let's see. Hi, Adam and Pete. Welcome.
Hey, how are you, Minnie?
I'm good. How are you?
Nice to meet you, Adam.
Nice to meet you too.
I've listened to some of your call-ins too, Mark and stuff. Not your actual Rutgers show, but good stuff, man. Good hearing you on there.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Great to be on the show.
I'm so glad you made it. Thank you.
Of course.
So you are tell us all what exactly your profession is.
Sure. Currently, I'm a professor at Georgia College and State University in Milledgeville, Georgia. I teach law classes. I'm also a practicing attorney for the last 25 years. And that's what I'm doing, kind of doing both right now.
Nice. And you also have a channel for the Trojans, right?
I do have a channel for the Trojans, but I don't really appear on it very often. I'm primarily on Rutgers at the Voice of College Football.
Okay.
But I love Matt Zemek and Tim. They're great people.
Yeah, Tim's great. I love Tim.
Tim's great. Tim Prangley is a great guy.
Yeah, I've met him. And Rutgers. So two total opposite ends of the world there.
Well, I'm originally from New Jersey, so although I went to USC for my undergrad, I'm always go back home. Love Rutgers.
So I'm a Syracuse fan, Adam. So we got the Big East vibe going on.
Absolutely.
Ray Rice was actually the beginning of the end for us.
Yeah, Ray Rice,
right, for Rutgers. So because he's from Onondaga, New York, Minnie. So like, as you guys know, back in the 80s, 90s, Cuse was really good, and then we kind of regressed. And Ray Rice was the first big time New York State recruit that got out of the state post McNabb, went to Rutgers with Shiano's first stint.
Yeah, Shiano has done a great job, even in the last few years, recruiting people from, New York, North Carolina, Florida. He's done a great job.
Yep.
But I will say, Syracuse, you guys had Kyle McCord, who just got drafted. He was, he was good.
Yep. He was good. This is so interesting. Here, you guys are both from different teams. Syracuse, Rutgers, USC, and you're here on the Nebraska channel. So thank you.
Hey, I was always a big fan of Tom Osborne, and I'll never forget. I was like 10 years old when they went for 2 against Miami. They didn't get it, but I had a lot of admiration for Tom Osborne and those teams. Turner Gill, Mike Frazier.
Yeah, he built the excitement for sure.
So question for both of you. So this is on top of scholarships, but just so I'm clear in understanding this, and for the audience too, I'm sure like NIL is in addition to this, it can still happen. And Minnie, you said there's a minimum of 600 on NIL deals. Like it has to be at least 600, right?
No, that's the amount that if it's 600 or more, it has to go through the clearinghouse for tax purposes.
Okay. And it was not going through that before.
Correct.
So that's good. But like in theory, a guy could still get a $3 million deal, right? $4 million presumed Carson Beck level.
Yeah, easily. Especially if it's like through a big company that, believes in him as an athlete, right? Like I think of Caitlin Clark with all of her NIL deals like Nike and.
Right. I heard that LeBron, Jordan too compares like pro sports have that cap, exactly what you're talking about. But still, this is why guys like MJ and stuff make even more off endorsements, LeBron, even when he's playing nowadays. So makes sense.
So we have a bunch of OGs in our chat. I call you an OG too, Justin, but I hope you don't mind this comment. Husker Chuck, he's always schooling me, telling me what I need to watch, old school Nebraska. But he has like a memory, kind of like Mark and Jackson, where it's just like a walking Rolodex of Nebraska games. And he said, fortunately, 1984 was before PD was born.
Hey, I think because we played them, I'm Googling it. I'm assuming we lost a national title game.
Well, I was born in 1975. So if you were born after 1984, I'm jealous, and you should feel very fortunate.
86. So I was telling Minnie, though, I put it in the chat, guys. Did Nebraska play Syracuse in the 90s or something? I feel like I swear they played in Syracuse because a lot of good teams came through. Adam knows in Rutgers, too, like Big East. A lot of schools came through those for home games, but
they may have, but I don't remember.
I couldn't tell you.
I
That
do
is not
remember,
my-
Nebraska in the mid '90s with Tommy Frazier
so
and
good.
Lawrence Phillips, who tragically passed away. They were a juggernaut. They took the Gators, I think it was 55-10 in that national championship game.
Lawrence Phillips is one of my favorite
I saw his
players to watch.
documentary. That was really good.
So good. So good.
I only remember the back end of his NFL career. What was with the Rams? So that was educational for me in his time in Nebraska.
Yeah, I'll never forget that game. I think Husker Chuck said it was 62-24. So I stand corrected. But there was one play where Tommy Frazier on the option was literally surrounded by 3 Florida players and ran over them for a touchdown. Unbelievable. And that was when they had Brooks Bollinger, I think, if I'm correct. Is that accurate?
Brooks Behringer,
Behringer, who also sadly passed away.
Yes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Minnie. Go ahead.
You, what?
I just did, since we're talking Nebraska QBs, an episode on my podcast on 4 pro athletes that opted to not go. I coined it to the NFL. Technically, they didn't even play college football, but they were high-risk recruits out of high school. Carl Crawford, if you remember, the longtime outfielder for the Tampa Bay Rays, was a dynamic athlete, had signed a national letter of intent during the Solich era, I believe, to play football at Nebraska as a quarterback, and opted to go to baseball instead. The rest is history. Like, I alluded to that in the episode. Like, there's a ton of what ifs in sports, but like, if you remember, do you guys remember Carl Crawford for the Rays?
Yes, I do.
I don't.
He was Minnie. There's a video. It was really early on in like social media world, but there's a video of him hurtling over a car in a parking lot, just in like street clothes.
Oh my gosh!
So athletic, stole bases, hit home runs. So to think what could have been in Nebraska, like a lot of these times, the way I see a lot of these programs is like sometimes it's just that one recruiter player that like doesn't go there, pan out, turn out, gets injured for whatever reason that like you don't really even know existed. Because we know what happened with Nebraska right after Osborne and Solich, what he was doing wasn't good enough. Like, what if that, what if Carl Crawford went to Nebraska?
Yeah. And I remember, I don't know what year it was. Maybe it was 94 or 96. I think Nebraska played Miami in the national championship game. Miami was ahead early on, but then Nebraska just overwhelmed them in the fourth quarter with a running back. I think it was it Schlesinger? I don't know if that's right, but I remember that game when they won. I thought they won 2 in a row, and that was just unbelievable. I mean, they were a powerhouse.
That sounds right. But honestly, I don't want to say yes or no because the chat here is, I mean, if I can't get it wrong, they'll have me hung. Like,
was it?
Okay,
I think it was. Yeah.
I hear you, Minnie. Like, I remember there was something, I do a bunch of content and stuff. I posted something like negative trend towards the Huskers one time, and the passion is elite. I put you guys in Bama and Tennessee in the same group, like shout out. So
it definitely is. Oh my gosh. It's a great fan base to be a part of, for sure. I love it. I mean, I don't take insult to anyone correcting me or trying to teach me anything because I love it. That's what I'm here for. I love it. I'm just being honest that I don't know, So Fred Sacco has a question. He says, or comment rather. He says, so my take on the new NIL Go thing is that a lot of lawyers will get really rich, especially when NIL starts denying deals, because then they'll have to like rewrite them, right?
Yes. It's
going to fit in those parameters.
It's going to make a lot of lawyers very rich. The settlement is problematic on a number of fronts. First, the fact that they're allowing schools to pay players directly to the tune of $20.5 million essentially means that schools like Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, they're going to prioritize football and be able to outbid most Division I schools for players, which in my opinion creates an antitrust issue. Antitrust typically deals with suppressing prices to gain unfair competition. I think that there's going to be an evolution in antitrust law to say that you cannot inflate prices to such a degree where you shut out the rest of the market and prohibit a fair market competition. That's problem number one. Problem number two is it doesn't do away with collectives. So it really doesn't matter how much schools can pay directly to players. The collectives can have millions and millions of dollars they also pay. So you're going to get players like Bryce Underwood, Arch Manning, who, what schools are going to have a chance of landing those recruits? Only the ones that are the wealthiest. I'm all for capitalism and fair market competition, but this is creating unfair competition and a monopoly because the wealthiest schools will control college football and be competing for the national championships every year. And I think the third thing is that when you do this, other schools are not ever going to be, now I'm not saying we have to have parity, but you're not going to give them a reasonable chance to succeed. And when you have a standard that says we're going to approve certain deals based on whether it's a valid business purpose, that is so vague that it's going to invite litigation over and over and over again. And the U.S. Supreme Court is not going to be able to keep up with it. So for those three reasons, you have a very, very serious problem. And you also, number four, are going to have a problem under Title IX because women's sports are going to say, hey, why aren't we getting money for our softball program?
That's the problem right there that I see.
It's memorializing all the problems with NIL. Well, I don't want to say the problems with NIL. In its original intent, NIL means, hey, players, if you want to have, if you want to do a commercial, you want to sign your jerseys and charge $100, all great stuff. But NIL is being taken to levels where collectives are being able to buy players. Now schools are going to be able to make it worse, and they're going to allocate the monies in a way that discriminate against women's sports, I predict. So yes, lawyers are going to get very rich, especially those that charge about $1,000 an hour, because litigation takes years, and they're just memorializing all that was bad about what became of NIL instead of getting back to the original purpose of it.
Adam, you have some fans here. So Roger Moore says, Adam for NU athletic director.
I can now officially say in my life, I'm almost 50 years old, that I finally have one fan. So thank you, Roger. I appreciate it.
Well, not just one. This is actually interesting that you didn't know you have two.
I have two.
Tony says, hey, it's my second favorite Rutgers fan.
I have two fans. By the time I'm ready for Social Security in 15 years, maybe it'll double the four. Hey.
So question. Thank you for the statements, Adam. That's very helpful. Man, I lost it. Keep talking.
It's okay.
Well, I mean, I guess I would say to summarize, let's look at NCAA versus Alston. It basically said, hey, Arch Manning, you want to sell your jersey for $100, make all the money you want. You want to do a commercial, you want someone to endorse you, that's all good. But what happened was schools like Texas A&M, Oregon, the top schools developed these collectives where these donors are giving millions and millions of dollars to essentially buy these players before and to secure them endorsement contracts, which was never the purpose of NIL. So that gave them a competitive advantage in the market. Now with this settlement, when you're saying schools in addition to collectives can pay what? $20.5 million. So the wealthiest schools are going to be able to say, hey, we're going to take 17, 18 million and buy Arch Manning or buy Bryce Underwood or buy whomever. So my theory is that creates an antitrust violation under the Sherman Act. Now, this is a novel theory because antitrust laws typically deals with colluding with other companies to lower the prices of your product to gain a monopoly on the market. What I'm arguing is that in this day and age, in this context, raising the prices that you can pay for players has the same effect as lowering them to depress competition because only a handful of schools are going to be able to afford that. So when you take into account collectives, what schools can do with that, you're creating a college football climate where only the top 5 to 10 schools are going to compete for the 5-star recruits, and it's not going to make college football competitive or allow schools to compete for the top recruits.
Okay, real quick.
That makes sense.
I got to clear up one thing out of chat. Pitt Snipe Husker, who also was in the chat today earlier whenever you made your little jab about Dylan Raiola, says, no. Adam was crapping on Dylan not an hour or two ago.
I can clear this up. So Pitt Snipe Husker, sometimes when I give commentary, I do it with a bit of sarcasm and a bit of humor. And it's not to knock down a particular player, but it is to, in part, highlight that I was not as impressed with their performances as some may have been, but also to be fair and add a little humor to it. But if Dylan Raiola is a star this year, more power to him. I'm not a Nebraska fan per se, but I can tell you from when I grew up as a young kid in New Jersey, even to now, I've always respected Nebraska for one reason: their physicality. They are a tough, gritty team that wins in the trenches, and I love Tom Osborne. So much respect to Nebraska, but I don't know if I can say the same about Drew Aller, but that's another topic.
Yeah. And I kind of always feel like you make those jabs so that I jab back a little bit.
Absolutely. I am trying to provoke you because I always enjoy your commentary. So I'm glad you could see right through it.
Well, these guys know that I will lay out life and limb for Dylan.
Well, what do you think, Peter? What's your thoughts on Dylan Raiola?
So I was not sold. Minnie and I went through Nebraska's schedule, and before that, I was kind of talking more. I am sold. I think first year for any quarterback is going to be tough. The fact that he's gone through it, had some of those tough environments, and now he's going into year 2. It typically does take a season and a half for players to start really, really getting it. Everybody's high on Bryce Underwood this year. And immediately I think of Dylan Raiola. No offense, Husker fans, he didn't do amazing in year 1, but he didn't do horrible. I mean, they made a bowl game. They're on the up. Minnie and I talked about this, but to sit there and oh, Bryce Underwood, the next coming. I'm like, well, yeah, but last year Dylan Raiola was the next coming. So which is it? You got to give these guys time. I don't think Underwood's going to have a fabulous year. I think he'll do mediocre. He's a freaking true freshman. Drew Aller, you mentioned him too, for kind of different reasons because he didn't play that long in high school at the QB position. But, these guys all, very rarely do you see a freshman come in and show out. Freaking Johnny Manziel was a redshirt freshman when he started to show out. You know what I mean? So
it's totally true. I completely agree with you. And I think I agree 100% on Bryce Underwood. I think that there's a lot of hype, but I don't think, Jalen Hurts, Tua, Tagovailoa, even Bryce Young in the first years, it's very tough. So in that regard, I agree with you. The thing about Nebraska football, I'll say, is I've been waiting for them to break through and become the Nebraska of old. And I think, what I've seen year after year is that they're kind of close, but one positive I saw last year was Nebraska's defensive line. They were tough, and they reminded me of those physical defensive lines of years past. And I hope they get back to that style of football because that's going to be a winning style of football in the Big Ten if they can win the trenches.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, year 3, Matt Rhule, Minnie. Ain't nothing to play with. We talked about
it. We've definitely talked about this. Not only that, we have a new defensive coordinator. It's funny because just even the small things, like what you're mentioning, he does not believe in playing with toys. And I know that's going to sound really bad when I say it, but what he meant by that is we're not tackling, the sleds in practice.
Yeah.
We're not doing it's real practice. We are doing real tackles and every chance we get. So it's going to be physical. And we just got a super chat, so I got to take this really quick from the other Dave. He says, Adam, have you read Cornered? That's exactly it.
I've never read Cornered, but I will, based on your recommendation. And I do agree with the comment about Turner Gill. Turner Gill was great. And there's also a running back at Nebraska recently. He actually went to my high school. I went to Bergen Catholic High School in New Jersey. His name is Ramir Johnson. I don't know if he's still there.
Oh, he just
He's gone.
graduated. You know, he has the best story.
Really?
The best story. His mother passed away last year. He didn't want anyone knowing about it. He went and handled that quietly because he didn't want to distract from the team. And I'm going to cry and you know, we went and played the bowl game in New York, and yeah, he ended up being, I think, the MVP of the game. It was really
amazing because I haven't followed him, but I knew he was from Bergen Catholic, and tragic story, but he was. I think he did well at Nebraska, if I'm correct.
He did. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I haven't followed up on what.
It may have been 4 years ago, I think, or
no,
3.
it was just last year. It was just last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish, Cass. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say they did like a little, you know, focus on his life, and they showed kind of like the route that he used to have to take to go to that school to play football. Like it was a 2-hour adventure for him just to go to the school and play. That kid has heart.
Yeah, and Bergen Catholic is one of the best programs in the state. For this guy to be commuting 2 hours like that is just unbelievable. And credit to him. I'm so
glad you brought him up. I'm going to have to look up where he is. What were you going to say?
Adam, so aside from Rhule, how do you feel about Matt Rhule as a head coach at the college level?
I think he's going to be very, very good. I do. And I think Nebraska, I don't know what their recruiting looks like, but I love their philosophy of how they play football. And I think football is ultimately going to get back to, well, I think it always gets back to who wins on the offensive and defensive line. I think Nebraska, if they can get back to their style of football, I think they're going to have great success within the next maybe 3 to 5 years. I just think Nebraska, has consistently been dominant because they are more physical than their opponent. They just have more physical. That's what they need to get back to. Now, I don't know enough about their players at this point, but what do you guys think?
I go more for Minnie knows more of the team, so I'll let her answer on that. For me, I go more of the just with surface more ish level knowledge on Nebraska. He turned around Temple. He turned around Baylor off of sanctions. And year 3 is when he starts clicking at both schools. Combine those two stints, 21-7. And again, he put freaking PJ Williams in the pros, a quarterback from Temple. So that was impressive. And then Minnie and I were talking schedule. Cincinnati, Akron, Houston Christian. So they'll be 3-0 going into Michigan, who just gave them ammunition because Sharon Moore called the shots on that one. Let's not lie. Said Oklahoma is more important than Nebraska, even though Nebraska's a conference game. And it's in Lincoln. Yeah. Good night.
Yeah. I think Rhule, he has a tremendous amount of experience. I think he's old school. I think Nebraska needs to get back to the old school type of playing. This might seem like a stupid question, but I've always wondered why Scott Frost didn't work out. I thought he was actually a good fit for Nebraska, but it was a disaster. And I don't know why.
I agree with you.
That's a whole nother show. I don't know. You'll have to come back for that, Adam.
Because college football, I was listening 2 weeks ago, and I think Minnie made a comment in there that Scott Frost was the worst in the country or whatever. But regarding UCF.
No, I did not. That was okay. Here's the real deal. Since we're going there, Mark Rogers puts together his list of worst coaches.
Right.
He has Scott Frost as the worst coach.
Yeah.
worst current coach in college football. And I didn't like that.
If I could go back to one game to predict the future for Nebraska, it would be that 94-95 game against Miami. So Miami Hurricanes come in with all the flash, the speed, the talent, great defense. And what you saw in that game was Nebraska in the fourth quarter absolutely wear them down. I think they had Michael Barrow on that team. I think they had the former linebacker for the Ravens, but they kicked their ass in the fourth quarter on physicality. And Schlesinger ran over them. That's what I think Nebraska needs to get back to, and I hope they have the players to do so.
Was it the name Joel Makovicka comes to mind? Was he a fullback?
Yeah. I mean, if you looked at Miami in the fourth quarter, they were gassed. And Nebraska didn't do anything fancy. They handed the ball off, I think it was to Schlesinger, and he had that big thing around his neck, that pad around his neck, and just bulldozed them. That's, I think, Nebraska football. And if you look at, even this year, like in the Rose Bowl, Oregon has all those high, flashy wide receivers and talent, but Ohio State physically dominated. Georgia physically dominated TCU in the national title. It comes down back to simplicity. And I think Nebraska, if they can have that philosophy and have the players do it, will win another national title.
Okay, so the other Dave points out Makovicka replaced Schlesinger.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Fred knows Nebraska football. Right.
Everybody here knows Nebraska football. Even Tony, who's a Minnesota fan who hates Wisconsin. Everybody here knows Nebraska football like the back of their hand. They seriously could write books.
Cool.
Watch out for Minnesota. PJ Fleck's doing a good job. They're going to be tough this year. But, yeah, they had Ray Lewis, Warren Sapp, and Nebraska just beat the crap out of them in the middle of the fourth quarter. And that's Nebraska football.
Adam, we both got slapped by those Miami teams year over year. You remember that?
Oh, man.
I oddly miss it now. I never thought I would, but, you got to respect greatness, right?
They were great. They were great, and they had swagger, man.
Oh, they were dirty. They were dirty. Yep. They were great.
Guys,
because you didn't play Miami year over year. I'm telling you, being in those stadiums on that commercial break, so many cheap shots behind the ref's back. So many cheap shots.
Oh, I could see it.
Never ending.
Do you remember the game Catholics versus Convicts? It was Notre Dame, Miami, back maybe 88, I think. I don't know.
I don't remember it.
But it was
a fun game.
Miami and South Bend, but Miami was there's a player from Miami that most people don't remember. His name is Rusty Medeiros. He was like the Mark Gastineau of Miami, just a vicious, dirty, angry player. And that symbolized Miami. They were amazing.
So back to what we were talking about with NIL and the House Settlement and such. 1970s child says, so much for amateur sports. If it was truly ever amateur in the first place, at least football and basketball. I mean, guys, I just have to say it. I'm only a college football fan for the last decade, okay? But even I know it's never really been amateur. I mean, when? Since the 30s, maybe. It's always been like the McDonald's, we joke. It's a brown paper bag with cash.
Mm-hmm.
But at least now we have some rules, guidelines. And I know we don't like government getting involved with our sport, our thing we love, but there has to be guidelines.
You know what? If I were doing the settlement, here's what I think would be the best for college football. It doesn't matter if you're capping the aggregate amount that a university can pay, because they're going to allocate it disproportionately to outfit other schools, and the collectives are going to make it worse. What you need to do is you need to cap how much money they can pay to individuals. I would cap it at $1 million, and then that's how I would do it.
I
Because it is
originally,
truly unlimited still, right? Like
Exactly.
you're saying the 20 million plus whatever the car dealership wants to pay, the restaurant. Okay.
Right.
but you have to realize that a big company, or any company really, has to make it for legal purposes, like worth their while. Like they're not just going to be, forking over money like that. I don't think. I mean, do you? Do you really think that, like, for instance, I was thinking about this earlier. I have in my closet probably, I don't know, 20, 25 Adidas t-shirts with Nebraska logos on them. And prior to being a Nebraska fan, there's no way I would have owned anything with Adidas on it. I don't care to. Nothing against Adidas, but it's just not my style. And I just think, for instance, Adidas, they just gave Dylan Raiola a contract. Why would they do that? A big company like Adidas, because they actually believe in him as an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if they believe in him as an athlete. I think that they think that he's going to make them more money.
Okay, that's fair.
So maybe I can give this example if it makes sense. Imagine tomorrow that Coca-Cola and Pepsi decide to sell each bottle for 40 cents. If they did that, they would be violating antitrust law because they would dominate the entire market. Everybody with a brain would buy Coke, or most people would buy Coke and Pepsi, and Dr. Pepper and other companies would be shut out because they're charging 2 to 3 times, 4 to 5 times more. Conversely, what I'm arguing, and what antitrust law has not embraced yet, is that when you do the opposite and you charge pay an extraordinary amount of money for a player, you're doing the same thing. You're shutting out the market. But antitrust law has never embraced that principle because they never anticipated that Coke and Pepsi would charge $15 for a drink. But we're dealing with a different context now in which these colleges can do that. So it's the same effect as if you lowered the prices in the commercial context as in when you outbid. In the college context, you're dominating the market and preventing fair competition.
I think, Minnie, I love that question. Because let's just say that like an athlete, knock on wood, whoever it is, doesn't work out. That's a lot of money, but it takes a while for companies and fans that are going to buy the product to figure out they're not going to work out. DJU is a perfect example of Clemson. 5-star out of high school. Remember, he was like the first round dish of the NIL folks, was appearing in Dr. Pepper commercials. And then everybody found out, oh, he's trash, he's awful. Dr. Pepper literally rescinded him from being the spokesperson, so to speak. Didn't matter. He still got his money. So technically, yeah, they probably not lost, but could have made more on him. Rerouted course. I think Bryce Young was the next one in or something, right? And, he stayed with them because he did thrive. But and Sebastian Telfair followed LeBron, remember, in basketball in the NBA back in the day at a high school. And he was supposed to be like the next LeBron, like the next great high school player. He wasn't. He flopped. He got signed to a big deal, though, with I forget who the sponsor was. So sometimes they, it's just it's a risk. It's like going all in with Pocket Kings.
Yeah, it's kind of like if I were Adidas, I would have offered Dylan Raiola, like say, a $5 million contract in January after Rutgers' season was over. But Nebraska isn't going to play for another 8 months. The amount of jerseys that they're going to sell is going to way outpace that $5 million. So if Raiola, doesn't do well the next year, you still have about a year and a half to make a profit.
Okay. It just seems like there is, this thing with the what do they call it? The College Sports Commission. There's a person in charge of it named Brian Seeley, who was a former assistant U.S. attorney who has served for more than a decade as the MLB's vice president of investigations and deputy general counsel. And he's the CEO of this College Sports Commissions and enforcement entity. It seems like he's been doing this a long time, so he kind of knows the parameters. I think this is just the beginning of, what the rules are going to be.
Well, if I could just say something briefly about him and about attorneys and people on commissions in general,
What?
they are 100% risk averse. They do not want to do anything and will never do anything that will get them sued or risk litigation. So what you're going to see is them invalidating only the worst and most egregious examples of abuse, which means nothing really is going to happen. So like administrators
that's not
in
a jaded
academia.
view at all, Adam. There's no jadedness there. And I know you're looking at this from,
Well, I've worked with a lot of. I've worked with people like that, and I will tell you that the thing they care about most is their reputation and avoiding litigation. So they will be strategic in how they approach this, which means essentially they won't do anything. And that's the problem with commissions. People do not have the guts to do the right thing. So all you're doing is piling bureaucracy on bureaucracy. And given how slow litigation is, you're going to get no changes. You have to have hard and fast rules that are self-executing as they are enforced.
I love that. That's what I'm hoping for.
I
really think this is kind of just the beginning of it, though, because there's all those senators who are trying to, come together with other rules for college sports. I mean, it just seems like this is the tip of the iceberg. Things are changing.
So, question on the Title IX for clarification. In theory, since they are now university employees, right, because they're being paid by the university, then therefore the universities are no longer to have to abide by Title IX. So ratio of men's sports to women's sports, is that true? So they can rescind any sports they want at any time?
No. Well, they can cancel any sports at any time, sure.
Yes.
But
yes,
you can't use employment contracts to evade federal statutes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the best argument that these universities are going to have is the argument that, say, the Soccer Association made when they paid women less. The answer is they don't generate the revenue.
Right.
That's going to be their argument.
Right, I gotcha. But they'll still have to, like, let's just say the school had football and that was it on the men's side. They would still have to have a women's sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like swimming or something to make it 1-to-1.
I think that's Title IX right there.
Yeah.
They would have to. That gets complicated because forcing universities to have proportionate or equivalent women's sports is a gray area. It's when you have them, then you have to make sure that you're being equitable in how you're supporting them. So what the universities are going to argue is, look, we're dedicating $18 million out of our 20.5 to Texas football because Texas softball generates $500,000 in revenue and our football program generates $100 million. But the problem is that it's going to entail litigation that takes years to percolate through the system. And that's why you need hard and fast rules that execute themselves on their face. Because when you invite litigation, you don't get any change. You just get years and years of disputes that delay any progress. So it's creating rules that are clear and enforceable on their face at the outset. Like, you can't pay a recruit more than $1 million, period. It's like a professor saying to a student, my attendance policy is that if you attend my class on a reasonably consistent basis, you will pass. Well, guess what? That's not going to work. You have to say, if you miss more than 5 classes, you don't pass. That's different.
Yeah. Tony has a great question. He wants to know, are they school employees or are they private contractors or subcontractors of the school?
They're employees. What you're in private contract, I think what you mean is independent contractors. Independent contractors are classified as people who work for you, but who are not under your supervision, direction, or control.
Mm-hmm.
These players are under the supervision, direction, and control of the university. So no,
they'll be taxed on the employee portion, right?
Yes.
Because I know that's been a thing too, since it's trending that direction. Like these NIL deals, a lot of them are just spending, not really understanding that they owe.
It's so true. And look, Arch Manning is a multimillionaire. I still haven't seen anything he's done on the field to justify that. I mean, no offense, but they can do that. Can Nebraska afford Arch Manning? No. Can Michigan State? Can Rutgers? No. Can even Florida State? A lot of public universities? No. It's a monopoly in the opposite direction of what antitrust law meant to do. Antitrust law meant to prevent companies from depressing prices to gain an advantage. They never anticipated you could increase what you can pay for people to gain an advantage. That's the problem.
It's like an inverted thing. I see your point now. Yeah. Ew. Wow. It is so convoluted.
I think, like you said, though, Minnie, at least we're going in a direction, right? I think the right direction versus like zero guardrails. Like, it's wild to think, right? 3 or 4 years ago, how the NCAA rolled this out. They were like, okay, go get paid. Literally. Like, what are you doing?
That's right. That's exactly right. And one thing I hate to say this, but there's a phrase that people refer to a lot in corporations, which is people fail upwards, which means they're not very competent, but they just keep getting promoted. When you think of commissions or the NCAA, people sometimes assume that it's filled with qualified people. It's not. It's filled with people who are risk averse and who are afraid to do anything. That's why you see settlements like these that don't solve anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the CFP committee just brought back a chair that wasn't great to that point. I think they brought in the original chair. They're bringing him back or whatever.
Somebody mentioned something about the NFL in chat, and it just makes me think, the NFL has been doing this for years. Why can't we just...
That's what Adam said. Like, why not just put it $1 million across the board in a way that is...
Well, now that's not true. The NFL does not do that. They have no control over what NIL a player receives outside of their payment from... Yeah.
Well, there shouldn't be control about what they receive based on the original purpose of NIL.
Mm-hmm.
There should be control on how the universities can go about hijacking players based solely on money. So there's a need for a $1 million cap because it's a unique situation in college football. Otherwise, Nebraska is going to be – how is Nebraska going to compete for Bryce Underwood? How is my school, Rutgers, going to compete for – they're not, and that's a problem.
Well, I think the goal is to minimize things like this. The goal is to make it so that if a player is receiving NIL, that it is for business purposes. And I don't know what the stipulations are, but it sounds like there's quite a bit of stipulations regarding how they can receive NIL.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but a lot of the stipulations are in gray areas. What you really need heading the College Football Commission is a businessman. Businessmen will put down hard and fast rules and not be afraid of litigation or be afraid of the consequences. And they are going to, you need practical people. You don't want academics or career bureaucrats, because all they do is nothing. They don't do anything because they're afraid to do anything. Mm-hmm. So that's why you get settlements like this that don't solve anything. You need, and I'm not going to get political because I am not a political person. But if you look at Donald Trump, for example, and I am not saying I support Donald Trump, the guy is a businessman and he says, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this. You may not like it. You may sue me. But the guy is going to make a damn decision. Bureaucrats and academics, which a lot of the people in the NCAA are afraid to do that. So I don't mean to get political, but there's a point there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. The collectives is what really brings in the gray area in my mind. Because if you have, and you can't tell a booster, okay, you can't donate to your school and, for this collective not to want to give millions of dollars to a player. You just can't. But that is where the gray area really comes in my mind, because when you have businesses, right, they're in it for a profit, always. So they're not going to just willy-nilly be giving money away necessarily.
Many
Those collectives.
boosters, I analogize to the Titanic. It was a huge ship, beautiful, but it hit an iceberg and it sank. The boosters are going to stop giving money when their schools don't win national championships.
Exhibit Florida Gators. They want Napier gone.
Because boosters are not the smartest people in the world. They're just the richest. They want a purpose in life, and they say, you know what? I've got $20 million. I'm going to be supporting Texas, and they're going to win a national. And when it doesn't happen, and they hit the iceberg, they're going to say, well, there's only a half lifeboats to support everybody, and we're all going down because we all lost this money, and it's going to correct itself.
Okay, we have quite a few comments. I got to take some of these. Okay, Wade Fart wants to know, what about if they get paid millions after they use up eligibility as part of the player's contract? I'm kind of confused about that, because from my understanding, there's a contract with the school that they play. There's not any stipulations like you have to play to this level, or play in all 12 games. But I just, are there, I guess they're still getting paid money regardless of if they can play or not, if they get injured or not, or if they leave.
I think, practically speaking, the answer to that question is they won't get paid millions after they use up their eligibility, because no one's going to want to pay them. They've got to prove their value. And once you're no longer valuable, who's going to want to pay them anything?
Yes, that's true. Okay, in answer to the question, dating back to when we first started here, Husker Chuck says, yeah, in 1983, Nebraska 63, Syracuse 7. And in 84, Syracuse 10, Nebraska 7, if his memory serves. Ooh, that sounds painful. From 83 to 84. Ugh. Why'd you have to throw 84's score in there?
86, we won the national title with Auburn. We tied.
Okay.
And Auburn opted to, I think, kick a field goal to go for the tie instead of the win at the end of the game. And games back then ended in ties.
Yeah.
I don't remember it.
Weird.
I was just born, but yep.
I know. Okay. And then we have Fred wants to know, I wonder how the settlement will cripple schools without as robust revenue as schools like us and blue blood programs. That is exactly what's going to happen. Schools that don't opt in to the $20.5 million, or even, up, I guess it's up to $20.5 million, you can share revenue. Yeah, there's schools that don't have that.
I have a solution for Nebraska, for Rutgers, and all the smaller schools.
We're not a small school.
Yeah.
I apologize. I meant schools that are not as wealthy.
Okay.
Reclassify your endowment. Dedicate a portion of your endowment to paying players.
You mean as far as into a collective?
Nebraska probably has a $500 million endowment, maybe even $1 billion. I'm not sure what it is, but it's a huge university. So with an endowment, you cannot use those funds except for expressly designated purposes. Get the donors to agree that 15% of it can be done to pay players, and then you'll make up the difference.
Okay. And then let's see here. Husker Chuck says, this is a side note, Adam. Rutgers should make a bigger deal out of the site of the first football game. What's your first football game?
I believe it's against, might be Miami of Ohio.
What's the site?
In New Jersey. I'm actually going to be there for that game, unfortunately.
Unfortunately?
Yeah, it's not well, I'm going to be there for the Iowa game, which will be more important. But Miami of Ohio is not a great. I think it's a Miami of Ohio. But when you say make a bigger deal out of the site, do you mean playing a better school, or
is he referring? My mind went to the first college football game of all time, because weren't you guys involved in that?
The first. I think you might be right. Yeah,
maybe that's what he's referencing. Princeton. He played Harvard, Princeton. It was an Ivy League.
Yeah, Rutgers 6, Princeton 4.
Yeah, that's what he was
2
saying.
2 field goals, 2 safeties.
All right. He doesn't. I don't think he clarifies there what he meant. But he does throw this out there just a couple minutes ago. 1869, Rutgers 6, Princeton 4. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, that's the year. I just Googled it. That's the first ever game, 1869, Rutgers, Princeton. So that's.
I see. Okay, I get the comment.
I only know this because I watched the Saturdays Down South, the history of SEC football, and they obviously explain the roots of college football as a whole. That's obviously part of it. So
that is so cool. What is it called?
Saturdays Down South, the history of college football. It's fantastic. They did one on general college football. ESPN did. SEC Network did one specifically on the SEC. So I haven't watched the full. I don't know if you guys have the full college football one. It's called the College Football 150. But they're both really good.
Maybe because Greg says Rutgers and Yale was the first game ever.
Well,
This is not a type of deal. That's huge.
I have to look that up. Well, Pete, I think you looked it up, right? So
Google said
I know Yale was in the first game.
Rutgers and the College of New Jersey, parentheses, now known as Princeton University. That's what it says.
Oh.
But that's Google.
That's probably AI too.
Yeah, right.
AI is not always right.
Did you have more comments? I had a question, Minnie.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead with your question. And yes, we do have more comments, but go ahead.
Okay. So the back pay for the athletes, can we talk about that? Because they're going back. How far are they going back for that? And what's the
2016.
amount? Okay.
Yeah, 2016, and it is $2.8 billion.
All right. Thank you.
But there's stipulations for that too. You can't go into some sort of, lawsuit and lose and then ask for the money. So there's about 600 athletes, I want to say, that have backed out of this whole thing. But there's thousands that have been a part of it.
I think that they agreed to that as a kind of a capitulation to get what they wanted with the 20.5 cap. I think that the lawyers for the athletes and whatnot were saying, we're not going to have any caps on anything. That's ridiculous. And they said, all right, well, guess what? We'll pay you $2.8 billion for your. And then the people in the lawsuit said, whoa, yeah, we'll settle for this. So I think it was a negotiating tool. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I wouldn't have paid them a dime because there's no legal claim they have to that money. But I think it was a strategic move to get what they thought was good now. Yeah.
That's what Fred agrees. He says 2016 was an arbitrary time. It'll be like a class action lawsuit. Everyone will get $39.25.
Fourth the cost of the college football video game. There you
go. Okay, let's see. Fred Sacco knows who the number one Rutgers fan is. He says it's Tony Soprano, right?
That brings up a traumatic memory. I don't know if I can discuss it on this show.
What?
Before I became a lawyer, I was an aspiring actor. And in 1997, I auditioned for The Sopranos. And unbelievably, I made it very far into the audition. And then they chose somebody else who you might know as Michael Imperioli, who played the role of Christopher. It was heartbreaking. My only shot at glory.
Give us your best Christopher impersonation then.
Oh, I can't. I don't remember. It was a very bland script, but
because his girlfriend wasn't doing drugs then.
Well, I don't know what the reason was, but I think the reason is that they're like an aspiring actor should not be chosen over an experienced actor because there'll be more takes and more money to get all the scenes done. But I wish they would have cut me on the first cut and not give me. They
got your hopes up.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Nebraska football.
Sopranos was filmed about 2 miles from my house. It's all in North Jersey, right by Hasbrook Heights. The Bada Bing, that strip club, was actually a real strip club called Satin Dolls, which is about 2 miles from my house. The actors are very nice. James Gandolfini was the most gentle, nicest human being you can imagine. The cast, the kids were great. Edie Falco, well, I don't want to say anything negative, but there were a couple of cast members that were rather standoffish.
Yeah, well, they're movie stars. The only reason why I ever watched Sopranos is because of Coronation and chat. Because I cannot tell you how many references I have seen to The Sopranos. So last year, I made it my mission to watch all the Sopranos series because I wanted to know what they were talking about, what they were referring to. So it's all kind of fresh in my mind still.
It was very realistic about Mafia in North Jersey. And Fred, great comment. That was hilarious.
I love it. I love that.
It's okay, Piss Knife Husker.
Okay, so let's see. There were some other comments. Okay, what's this all about? Rutgers has the Greek squirt gun. Do you know what Adam know about quarterback?
Yeah, he's talking.
Oh, that's right. What's his name? What's that kid's name?
Ethan Kaliak-McManus, who we
Kaliak-McManus.
Yeah, got a lot of potential, but needs to be more consistent.
Yeah. He's a PJ Fleck, former Gopher, right? He transferred over.
Transferred from Minnesota 2 years ago, or I love PJ Fleck. Does he have the bow tie? You know, he comes there in Minnesota. He's brought Minnesota back to relevance. I mean, they're not a team to look past.
Adam, I was sold on him too. I'm really not anymore. I was sold on him like immediately post Western Michigan, the row the boat thing. And he still does that, but like he really had that going. And then I feel like he hasn't done as well as I thought he would in Minnesota. Jerry Kill had it going really well, and then as we all know, he had health issues. Then he crushed it again at New Mexico State, so that was cool.
Yeah, that's true. I think PJ this year is going to be the year where it's either going to go.
Don't say that.
And by the way, I can't wait to go to Lincoln because I hear that Lincoln is one of the coolest cities that is really under the radar. And is that true?
It really is. You need to come. Lincoln is so much fun. It's like, it's about an hour away from Omaha. So you have to fly into Omaha.
Yeah.
But it just is its own little, wonderful town. It's so fun.
Wow. Well, I can't wait. It seems like a great community, so I look forward to it.
You need to come. We're not playing Rutgers this year. We do play USC, and USC is coming to Lincoln.
That's what I was thinking, USC.
Yeah. But I think that's when is it? October?
I think it's in late October, maybe. And it's good to know Omaha is only an hour away because I knew I had to fly into Omaha. I didn't know how far Lincoln was, so an hour was good.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. We have back to the quarterbacks. for Nebraska. Vince Ferragamo is the only Nebraska quarterback who had any real success in the NFL. And I think we're dating back to the 70s now.
I'm a huge Elvis fan. So every time I think of the 70s, I think of Elvis. But Nebraska was like an option team for many years.
Do you know if any of your option QBs, Minnie, even got drafted? Like Eric Crouch, Scott Frost, did any get drafted? Because that was a different era. I think now they would.
It's a great question. I'm
Tommy
curious to know the
Frazier.
answer to that. Tommy Frazier didn't. He had blood clots.
Okay.
I don't know.
I think there was a QB controversy at some point with Frazier, Brooks Behringer, but
There was a little bit because, the blood clots, and then Behringer had to take over for a little bit. And from all accounts that I've heard, a lot of players preferred Brooke Behringer. But he just kind of was the backup and went back to being the backup once Tommy Frazier was cleared to play. So,
yeah, they all went, Minnie. I Googled it. Eric Crouch, Tommy Frazier, Turner Gill, Scott Frost, Vince Ferragamo. It says all got drafted. But then somebody put in the chat, I remember that vaguely too, that Crouch insisted on playing QB and wouldn't swap to receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, that's not good when you're going to the NFL.
The same thing.
Then we also have Vince Watson. Corey Campbell, who is our strength and training coach, is the most important coach at Nebraska to get them back to the level of days gone by. I truly believe he's right. We have a strength and training program and nutrition program, I have to add that is, they're so great. I can't even, I had a strength and training coach on here from Nebraska from the 80s that was talking about the importance. I never realized. I mean, you just think, just even like the way that people walk or stand, like for instance, there's people that kind of walk on the outer parts of their foot, or maybe like when they jump and they buckle on their knee. Well, that will open them up to a torn ACL in the future. So they're really on it.
You guys remember Jason Peter? I think he was a D lineman for Nebraska. What a stud.
He went to Nebraska?
I thought he did.
I think cool. You're right, yeah.
Yeah, he played for the Bills, and then the Eagles is where he really made his money.
Yeah. He was great.
Okay, and then we have Fred Paco. Serious question. If we don't take the Rhule third-year jump and win less than 9 games, is it a disappointment?
With that schedule, Minnie, I would say yes, wouldn't you?
I hate to put a number on it. I hate it.
He needs to win 8. If he wins 8, but Nebraska can't keep switching coaches. They've got to. I'd give him at least 5. 5 years.
Fair. Yeah. He's got a good track record, man. I mean, Scott Frost had a Group of 5 track record as head coach, So that's the thing with Frost too. Not to sidebar it, but like Scott Frost, UCF this time is different because they're Power 4, so it's different expectations.
Yeah.
This is a great comment. I love where he's going with this. 1970s Child says the non-major FBS conferences should disband and create their own playoffs and championship. He's not wrong.
Is that Jack Lambert that he has as that picture? Because it looks like one of the Steelers, steel curtain from the 70s. Great comment.
Yeah, that's been talked about. Like I've heard the the English Soccer League, Premier League concept too, kind of lends itself to that, like relegation and promotion. Top team, let's say that Group of 5 branched off. Boise wins it, they go up. Worst team in Power 4 record-wise, or however you want to do it, goes down. And then at the end of the year, what you do is you not only have your 12-team, 16-team playoff, whatever, you have your bottom games as like sink or swim. Iowa, Florida State, maybe. Whoever is the worst team that year in the Power 4.
Still football. I'll watch it.
Right. I wonder too, guys, like on that theme, do you think that HBCU and FCS will actually increase in popularity now with these new rules and like the separation between what they were alluding to, that group of 5 and Power 4? Because they're all FBS, but it's almost like having two different leagues levels.
Yeah.
And HBCU specifically has a lot of talent over the years.
Yeah, and that's where my brother lives up in Wyoming, and so does Vince Watson. And he used to be a Wyoming's Cowboy fan. I guess he still is. He just doesn't support them anymore because, they changed coaches. All the good players, all the good coaches have been poached. And that's what's happening.
I still kind of think that fans are going to go to the teams that have the best players for excitement. I think they're going to find them. I think I see it more like the minor leagues, like AAA, where they'll get fans, but they won't get. But 1970s, Charlie, you're talking about the Steel Curtain. I think the Steel Curtain, didn't they have was it Joe Green and LC something? They were a powerhouse. LC something, but I don't know his last name. Unbelievable. But I think people are still going to go to the Nebraskas, the USCs, the Ohio States. But hopefully I'm wrong, because HBCUs do have some great players.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know how it would happen. I just think like there's something. Maybe guys would just find it more lucrative or something to go to these other schools, at some point, if the rules continue to be guardrailed and trend a certain way. Does it possibly become like, oh, you're allowed like 15 guys at X amount? Okay, cool. Then guy 16 or 17 says, oh, well, I can actually make more at Jackson State or Southern U, so I'm just going to go there.
That's a good point.
They get drafted, they get scouts at their, games and everything. And they're, they have their pro days and all that.
That's a good point. You might be right.
Yeah. Okay. Joe Lalakis says, Wyoming, where the men are men and the sheep are nervous. Wah, wah. Do you guys? Okay. Anyways, nobody's laughing except me.
I don't know what it means.
You don't. They're just a bunch of like sheep. Okay. Have you seen Brokeback Mountain?
Oh, it's a reference to Brokeback Mountain. Okay. All right.
Kind of, I think. I don't know. But I think there's just a joke going on. But yeah. All right, you guys. Well, anything else you want to add about the NCAA settlement? It sounds like there's going to be a lot more to come to me.
Yep.
So Adam, you're definitely welcome back to explain any legal stuff to us.
Well, I appreciate you having me on the show. Peter, great meeting you. Minnie, thanks for having me on. I'm happy to come on anytime that you'd like me to. So appreciate it.
Thank you. What about you, Pete?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I guess one thing I'll just say in closing is like I really love the thoughts from you two in the chat. And I'm almost now like, NCAA, why didn't we start with this that we're doing right now when you first came out with it? Now we would be, like Minnie, you said, hopefully there's more to come. Maybe right now would have been the more to come. You know what I mean? It's going to be kicked down the road another 3-4 years. So, but thank you for having me on. Follow me on X there at Pigskin PD. My podcast channel is there as well. So thank you, Minnie. GBR.
GBR, that's Go Big Red. And we don't play Syracuse. We don't play Rutgers. So you guys better be cheering for Nebraska, right?
Will do.
I root for coaches, and Rhule is on my list of coaches that I like to follow. So yes, 100%.
Good. Yeah, I think we have a great, I mean, we talked about it. We have a great schedule. So strength of schedule is in our favor.
Yep.
And we have a lot of things that we're going to unveil this year, I think. So thanks for being on this show. And yeah, look forward to seeing you guys hopefully next week for new Monday Night Therapy, as well as don't forget to check out this Thursday's the 5 Heart podcast with myself and Greg Mahachko, who's in chat. And until then, oh, and also don't forget, I did a video. I just want to talk about this real quick. I did a video interviewing the National Football Foundation and College Football Hall of Fame CEO and president. And I just uploaded it last night for you guys. So it'll be fun to take a look at. It's only like a 29-minute video. So do that. And I'll see you next week. Go Big Red.
Thanks so much.